It's another episode of the Minding My Temple podcast with me, your host, Tasha Temple. Now, if you tuned in to the previous episode, we gave you all of the truth about diabetes, which had me thinking, what do I want to talk about next? And I figured, since it's closely related, that I would talk to you guys today all about sugar. Because a lot of times we do associate sugar with diabetes. However, a lot of the things we think about sugar are not quite true. So I figured I would clear it all up today because I don't want you guys walking around thinking all these negative thoughts and having all these negative views about sugar. I'm going to simply break it down today so you have a really good idea of how to add it into your life in a balanced way and not feel bad about it. Because once you have the facts, you'll realize like, oh, sugar's not so bad and it actually tastes really good. So let's get down to the nitty gritty. But before we do all of that, you know I have to do my segment called Minding My Business, just to let you guys know what I've been up to this week. And you know, it's been going. But if you've followed me the past couple episodes, this year in 2022, I decided not to make any resolution. Now, I don't typically make resolutions anyway, but I figured I wanted to do something a little special to determine what I would do this year. Not really make like a goal, but I did want to make myself a theme. So my theme for this year was be. So if you go back a few episodes, you'll hear me talk all about how I came to this idea that my theme for the year would be be. I simply want to be me authentically all the time. And that's all I get to work on this year is simply being my purest, truest, authentic self every day. No matter how that looks or how that shows up, I just get to be me. Now, the past few months, so in January and February, I put a word with the B, if that makes any sense, okay? So like, for instance, in January, my B word was be disciplined because I was focusing on getting back into the habit of working out and getting back into the habit of just my eating regimen and doing those things that needed a little discipline. So in January, I'd be disciplined, okay? And then in February, to go along with the month, I decided to be love. Now, I don't know how well I did with that. I mean, looking back, I'm like, was I really being love in February? I don't know. If I were to rate myself on a scale of 1 to 10, I might be at a 5 or a 4. I don't remember February that much because it was a busy month. However, March is now upon us, which means I'm so excited because spring is around the corner. And just so you guys know, I cannot stand cold months. So spring means we're that much closer to summer, and that makes me excited. So in the month of March, because I've been so wrapped up in trying to figure out how to keep a schedule, how to stay organized, how to fit it all in. And I've been having a really challenging time with navigating through all the demands and all the expectations that are in my life. Whether it's going to work or spending time with loved ones or having time for myself or doing all the extra entrepreneurial things that I do after hours, I've been having a really, really hard time navigating through all of that. And so I decided that in the month of March, I'm going to simply be free. Free, 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 free. That means free to allow myself grace when I don't get things done. Free to just go do the things that might be fun without having this idea that I have to do it all right now. And so in the month of March, right now, I'm working on, or I'm putting effort and intention towards being free. Free of all the thoughts in my head, free of all the expectations, free of all the to-dos. I just simply want to be free mentally, emotionally, all of that. So however that shows up, I'm allowing all of that space to happen in the month of March. And that's what I'm up to because I really have had a rough time this past 3 months of 2022 just because there's been so many demands in my life and I'm just trying to figure it out. And guess what? I don't think I'm doing so well at it. So if you feel that way, guess what? We're all probably feeling a little overwhelmed, and I would just encourage you to give yourself a little grace and go be free. So that's what I'm up to right now in my life, is just trying to figure it all out and find a way I can balance it all. And yeah, it's definitely takes some practice. So I'm in some practice. I'm in a, what you call that? What's that thing they call when it's football season and you're going the preseason? I'm in preseason practice. That's what I'm doing. So hopefully once it's season time, I can win me a few games to get to the championship. All right. So that's what I'm up to right now. But I definitely want to dive all the way into sugar. Don't be scared, you guys. It's simply something we eat. As I talk about food in all of my other episodes, I want you guys to understand that everything that we put in our mouths has a purpose. Nothing is intentionally there to harm us. When we start to see weight gain or health conditions and concerns, and all these things happen to us because of what we eat, it's not the food necessarily we're eating that's the challenge. It's the portions that we eat here. They're large and excessive. And whenever you do something in excess, I mean, there's not really always a great outcome. And so sugar's gotten a bad rep here in our country specifically because a lot of our processed and packaged-based foods are in the sugar family. And so not only do you have a lot more sugar because it's convenient, but you also have a lot more calories because we're adding also fat to a lot of those packaged products to keep the shelf life or to keep the taste. And so remember, it's not always sugar that is the culprit, but it's been labeled a bad guy. All right? So, and you're guilty until proven innocent, or no, I'm lying. You're innocent until proven guilty. And so let's let sugar have some innocence and let's take it to trial, okay? So I'm gonna give you some information. And so when we're talking about sugar, sugar is simply the gas for your body. So sugar is derived from foods called carbohydrates. So you guys listen up. We often talk about sugar and are thinking about things like sweets and like candy and cookies and cakes, but everything that's a carbohydrate in your body is going to turn into blood sugar. So there's a couple of different types of sugar. You've got blood sugar, that's sugar that you find in your bloodstream, and that is called glucose. And then you have sugar outside of the body, like table sugar or, honey, things like that. That's just simply called sugar, or sucrose to be fancy. So you got glucose, which is sugar in the body, in the bloodstream, and you got sucrose, which is sugar outside of the body that we eat. So all carbohydrate foods have some type of sugar in them, or they turn into sugar once they get inside your body. Now, that's not a bad thing. We need sugar because, or specifically blood sugar that comes from carbs, because that is what fuels our body. So I'll give you an example. Think about what you put in your car, right? You pull up to the gas station and you put gas in the car, and the gas in the car is what makes it go. Yes, that's a good thing. Now, what carbohydrates are, which remember, carbohydrates turn into sugar once you eat them, all those are our gas for the body, because sugar is the gas for the body. We need gas to go. So think about what uses gas in your body. You have to think, you have to breathe, your heart needs to beat, we need to talk, we need to blink, we need to walk. All of these things are fueled by sugar, which comes from carbohydrates. And so I don't want you thinking you have to avoid them. We want to make sure that you're eating the right amounts at the right time to make sure that you fuel your body in a way that's effective. That's the point. So let's get into some facts about sugar. Now, remember I said carbohydrates is what turns into sugar in the body that gives you fuel. So the first thing is, well, what are carbs? What foods are in that family? I'll give you all of them. So the foods that are in the family of carbohydrates are the following. You have, number one, you have starches, like your grains. So you have grains as your number one category, and that includes bread, rice, pasta, quinoa, stuff like that. The stuff we associate with sugar, right? the pastas and the starches. You got number 2, you got starchy vegetables. So those are both starches. You have starches in your starchy vegetables and starches in your grains. Starchy vegetables are things like beans, you have potatoes, you have peas, you have corn. So you have grains and starchy vegetables. Those are starches, which are also carbs, which also turn into sugar in the body. All right, let's move on. Number 3, you got dairy. You're like, what? Dairy is a carb that turns into sugar? You've got it. So that includes like milk and yogurt. Now, some categories of dairy don't fall into the carb family, and one of those is going to be cheese. Cheese, although it is derived from dairy products, does not turn into sugar in the body. It is not a carbohydrate. But milk and yogurt have a special sugar in them called lactose. You guys probably heard that before because you probably know somebody who is lactose intolerant. And lactose is the natural sugar found in milk products, okay? So right now we have grains, we have starchy vegetables, we also have dairy products. The 4th one is going to be fruit. Yes, fruit. Again, we have this negative connotation associated with carbohydrates, but yet fruit is healthy. Fruit is full of water. It also has sugar in it, and most of it is called, so fruit has a natural sugar in it called fructose. Fructose is fruit sugar. So your fruit has fructose in it and water and antioxidants and vitamins. And so fruit is part of the carbohydrate family. What's interesting is in my line of work, when people come to my office and we're talking about diet and they tell me they're on a no carb diet and I ask them what they're eating, they'll start to describe instances where they're eating fruit. And I'm like, that's a carb. They're like, but it's healthy. And I'm like, yeah, like there are healthy carbs. Carbs are healthy for you because it provides energy. It's part of this balanced system that your body needs. It's just that we've had these conversations for so long that carbs are bad, and they're not. So I just want to make sure you guys understand that we can stop saying that and think about like, what are these things doing for our bodies and how much of them am I eating? That's where it starts to become unhealthy. Now, you also have a 5th category in this carbohydrate family, and those are the ones we all know about. And that's like the sweets and the candy and the cakes and the pies. Now, you have all of those different categories of carbohydrates, right? You have grains, you have starchy vegetables, you have dairy, you have fruit, and you also have sweets. Now, guess what? Out of all of that food, whether you're having an orange or whether you're having rice or whether you're having black beans or whether you're having pie or whether you're having Greek yogurt, once that food moves past your throat and enters your digestive tract, all it's about to do is turn into sugar, no matter what it is. Because that's what carbs are designed to do, is to turn into blood sugar so that your body is provided with energy. Because I'll be honest, once food gets in your digestive tract, your body has no idea that that used to be an orange or that used to be bread or that used to be potatoes. All it knows is now that I have some carbohydrates and I'm going to turn that into blood sugar. That's all it knows. It doesn't know where it came from, like which specific food it was, but it does know that it comes along with other things, like for instance, an orange comes along with vitamin C, right? So now I got vitamin C and sugar. So those are the other things that happen in the body, but typically, or not typically, all the time, all these foods are just turning into sugar. Now, that's not a problem. That's okay. We don't want to avoid having sugar in our system because we need gas and we need energy. One thing to be mindful of is how much we're having at a time. That's where we want some balance. Because if we have gas for our bodies, just like gas for the car, you have to be mindful that your gas tank is only so big. So if I overfill my gas tank in the car, it's simply a waste of money because that gas can't be used to make the car go because the tank is now full. So just like your body. So if I overfill the gas tank, which is the sugar tank or the carbohydrate tank in my body, then I can't use the excess because it's not going to be used to fuel my body. It's just a waste. The catch is a waste in the body turns into body fat, which then increases your weight. Then that leads to challenges with your health. That's where you have the imbalance. It's not the sugar that causes the imbalance, it's the amount. So let's talk about how much sugar or how much carbs we need at a meal. You need up to 2 to 3 portions, or 1 to 3. But here's the size of the portions, okay? So your grains, that includes, actually, let's go back. No, let's go forward. Write this down specifically. Let's talk about grains. So if you have rice or pasta, 1 portion is 1/3 of a cup. 1/3 cup is 1 portion of rice or pasta, or like rice-like products like quinoa, okay? If I have any other carb, so that can be fruits, that can be, potatoes, that can be corn, that can be beans or peas, a standard portion is 1/2 of a cup. 1/2 of a cup. There are some exceptions in the fruit category. If I have berries or if I have melon, 1 cup is considered a portion. So I can have more berries and melon. So if you're thinking about how do I make my food go a longer way, you may consider doing berries or melons because you can have more of those. So let's go back to portions. So if I have rice or pasta or quinoa, 1/3 of a cup. Any other carbs, 1/2 of a cup. And those special fruit items like berries and melon, you can have a whole cup, okay? Dairy's also a whole cup. That's 1 portion. And you can have anywhere from 1 to 3 portions per meal. Look at that. That will keep your gas tank steady without overflowing or overfilling it, which then you can keep that energy flowing throughout the day as long as you're having 3 meals. The goal, remember, is to not overfill. And just because you skipped lunch does not mean you can overfill the tank at dinner, because no matter what, the tank is still the same size. Got it? Got it. Okay. So now that we know how much to have and we know which carbs are what, right? Let's talk about how to read that on a label. Because it doesn't say 1/2 a cup on a label. It doesn't say 1/3 cup on a label. It doesn't say 1 cup on a label. But it does give you portions in the amount of grams. So 1 portion of carbohydrates equals 15 grams. And remember, all carbs turn into blood sugar. And so 15 grams of carbohydrates is 1 portion. So if you can have 2 portions, that's 15 plus 15, which equals 30. And then if you have 3 portions, that's 15 plus 15 plus 15, which is 45 grams. So if you're reading a label, all you got to do is find the word carbohydrate, look to the right of it, and it'll tell you a number with a little g next to it. That is the amount of grams in that particular product per portion. Now remember, you have to look at the label serving size to make sure you understand how much that particular gram number is going to, the size of that. So at the top of the box, it might say 3/4 of a cup is 16 grams, or it might say 5 crackers is 8 grams. And so just make sure you look at the serving size per portion so that you know exactly how much to get for that amount of grams that's indicated on the label. Now, one thing that gets people confused about sugar is, what about natural sugars? What about added sugars and all that information? Now, here's the nitty-gritty on that. Natural sugars are the following. So outside in the grocery store world, natural sugars are regular table sugar. You have sugar in the raw, that's number 1. You have honey, you have molasses, you have maple syrup. So these are your options for sugar. That's natural. Now, here's what an added sugar is. An added sugar is any type of sugar, whether it's natural or not, added to a product that it doesn't normally come in. So I'll give you an example. If I'm making bread, bread is made from wheat, which is a starch. I understand that turns into sugar in the body, but on a label, what they're talking about are the sweet sugars. So if I have bread and I add honey to it to make honey wheat bread, the honey, which is a natural sugar, now turns into an added sugar in that product. However, the wheat and the added sugar still are going to turn into sugar in the body because that's what they do. Okay? So there's nothing bad about that, but you got to make sure that you stay within the right portion for that. That's the goal. Also, you have this big conversation about high fructose corn syrup. All high fructose corn syrup is an ultra processed based sugar that lasts longer. Not that it's bad or worse, but it is something that we add to foods that probably doesn't need to be there. So if you think about it, if you have some peanut butter crackers, why do they need to add high fructose corn syrup to some peanut butter crackers? So I tell people, when you see high fructose corn syrup, make it make sense. Do I need to add high fructose corn syrup to a cracker or chips? Not if they're not sweet. That don't really make much sense. Or if I buy juice and it says high fructose corn syrup, why am I adding additional sugar to something that's already sweet? That seemed a little excessive and could overfill my tank. So when you see these words like high fructose corn syrup or molasses or honey and all of that in the ingredients list, just think simply about, does it make sense? That's it. Yeah, if I buy cake, it might say high fructose corn syrup, but I'm also looking to buy something sweet, right? And so that makes sense. But if I'm purchasing potato chips, it doesn't make sense for there to be added sugars in that product. So just make it make sense when you're talking about natural versus added. But remember, natural sugar like honey or maple syrup or sugar in the raw can be added to a product and it now becomes an added sugar. So just because it's natural doesn't mean it can't be added to something and then be considered an added sugar. And I just want to be really clear, you guys, agave is not considered a natural sugar, even though it's organic and we talk about it in this natural sense. So again, your natural sugars outside of the body that you'll see or that you can purchase is going to be like sugar in the raw, honey, molasses, maple syrup, things like that. But agave does not fall into that category. Okay, just so you guys know. Now, one thing that you're gonna find added sugars in most often are your beverages. And so I just tell people to be really careful about drinking beverages that are sweet, because here's where the challenge also lies when we're talking about sugar, is when you have fast sugars. So a fast sugar would be considered something like juice, meaning it doesn't need anything, you don't need to digest it. It goes directly into the digestive system and moves directly into the bloodstream, which causes spikes in blood sugar. And we want to avoid blood sugar doing like this. So that's why I tell people to be mindful about the types of sugar they're eating. And so when I say fast sugars, those are the simple ones, like ones that can move through the system pretty quickly and pretty fast. Now, fruit sugar, which is found in fruit, is pretty fast, but here's the benefit of having fruit in regards to sugar, is your fruit products also come along with fiber a lot of times, especially if that fruit has skin on it. So consider an apple or consider a pear. Now don't consider an orange because ain't nobody eating orange peels, but fiber is an important factor when we're talking about carbohydrates and sugar, because fiber is typically found in carbohydrate foods. It's also found in regular vegetables, but it's found in things like rice, it's found in bread, it's found in potatoes, and especially because of that skin, it's found in beans. So fiber is known to help sugar slow down. Because remember, we do not want these spikes in sugar that roll like this. We want to have like a steady progression of sugar. We get a little bit of sugar and then we use it, and then we get a little bit of sugar and then we use it. That's the goal. So you need a little bit of fiber to help that process, to slow the sugar down so that we're not having spikes. So when you're looking at carbohydrate products and you're buying them in the store, always think, I want to buy a carb or a sugar-based product that has fiber in it. a good thing to think about if you're looking at labels is to at least get products that have 3 grams of fiber or more. A really good number when we're talking about fiber is going to be 5 grams or more. So I like to make sure if I'm getting things like bread, or if I'm buying brown rice, or if I'm buying something that's packaged that's a carb, I like to really look at that fiber number because that's going to be important in making sure I navigate through that spike. Now, that's a lot of information. And I know we went through portions, what types of carbs there are, the difference between natural sugars and added sugars. And so the goal is to make sure that you guys understand that sugar is simply gas for your body. And sugar comes from all carbohydrate foods. So no matter which food you choose, whether I choose a sweet potato, or whether I choose a regular potato, or whether I choose black beans, or whether I choose rice, all of that is going to turn into sugar in my body, which is used simply to fuel my body. The goal is to make sure that you're having the right portion. And again, if you're having your rice-based products like quinoa rice pasta, 1/3 of a cup is a portion. If you're having any other type of carb like fruit or your starchy vegetables like beans and potatoes and peas and corn, that's going to be 1/2 cup. If you're doing those specialty fruits like berries and melon, that's a whole cup, just like dairy is a whole cup. And also remember that one portion is 15 grams. So the goal is not to overload your tank and to also make sure you have some fiber so that you can slow that carb down or slow that sugar down. Those are the main focuses. And that's it for the most part. I know it sounded like a lot. And you guys know if you ever have questions, feel free to reach out to me, you guys. The best way to reach out to me is on my Instagram page. You can find me at Minding My Temple. You could always go back and view all past and previous episodes and current episodes on my fan page on the TLSC radio platform. That's www.tlscradio.com. All you want to do is click on fan page. There's an arrow to the right. You'll click the arrow and you'll find Minding My Temple. If you click there, it will take you to episodes from season 1, 2, 3, and current. And also you can go back and listen to this one or watch this episode. My goal here is to make sure you guys have all the necessary information you need so that you can balance your life. And I know sugar is one of those things that seems so challenging, but one thing I would encourage is please do not eliminate sugar from your diet, because remember, there's sugar found in so many different foods and we need the fuel. We need to make sure we're balancing our bodies and what we put in our bodies on a regular basis. I would just say make sure you find something that has a lot of fiber. Make sure you find something that has a lot of nutrients. Make sure you find something that's going to be good for your body, that you feel good about eating. And so if you want to get rid of the sweets, great. You can get rid of the chocolate. You can get rid of the cake. You can get rid of the candies. You can get rid of the pies. But please make sure you do choose something in that carb family that's going to make you feel good and be balanced for your body. So if you want to eliminate the sweets, good, but still have fruit. That's low in calories. Tastes good. It can be a sweet fix. Don't get rid of oh, you can get rid of dairy if you want to, but I'm saying if you want to have dairy, you could have some Greek yogurt, you could have some milk. If you wanted to do, the starchy vegetables, you could have a good sweet potato, you could have some good beans. Like all of these foods can be balanced for you if you just have them in the right amounts. So nothing is wrong with sugar. I said it here. Don't be scared of sugar. Don't be scared of sugar. And to learn more about how to balance your life, make sure you always tune in with me, Tasha Temple, on the Minding My Temple podcast. And that's it for today. Thanks, you guys.